Today, I'll be previewing 23-11 for the 2022 NASCAR Cup Series season. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. The first thing we're going to talk about is the 2020 season for 23-11 Racing. Now, 23-11 Racing's expectations in the 2021 season were really high because, of course, Michael Jordan was coming into the ownership side of things and having ownership with Denny Hamlin. And Michael Jordan is going to bring a lot of fans into the sport regardless. And there was so much hype around this team. Now, their expectations were through the roof, and they really did 100% deliver exceedingly on those expectations. But for a first-year team, they had a very positive year in many ways. They were able to be fully sponsored for the 2021 season as they were able to have Dr. Pepper, Root Energy, McDonald's, Columbia, and DoorDash sponsor them throughout the entire year. And they also at Pocono were able to have DraftKings sponsor them, I think in the first and maybe the second Pocono race as well. So they have for both Pocono races the DraftKings sponsor on there. On top of that, Bubba Wallace is actually able to score a victory at Talladega, which is really cool to see. They're one of the only few teams that got their first career wins. Cog Racing also got their first career win as well as an organization at the Indianapolis Road Course, but they were able to get their first career win at Talladega Super Speedway. They were able to get 3 top 5s and 3 top 10s, those coming at Daytona, the other one coming earlier in the year at Pocono in that fuel mileage race. And they also did at least 62 laps, had a 19.7 average finish. Like I said, the expectations for 23-11 Racing going to 2021 were really high, and even Michael Jordan thought they were able to get multiple wins. I expected one win, and at the beginning of the year, they really struggled. But as the year progressed, their average finish went down. There's actually a track that came through that basically said, like, every quarter of each the season, Bubba Wallace improved by 2 positions on his average finish, which was really cool to see throughout the year as well. So Bubba Wallace really improved throughout the year. And a lot of that was with the crew chief change that happened through the early portions of the, well, actually the later portion of the year. Because Mike Wheeler really struggled as a crew chief, and they showed a lot of promise on times, and Mike Wheeler made a ton of bad strategy calls throughout the season. They decided to go ahead and change crew chiefs and put Mike Wheeler in the competition director side of things, and they decided to go ahead and put Bubba Wallace with a new crew chief, that being Booty Barker, who was already working in the team. He got promoted to the crew chiefing, and they improved, and this is where Bubba Wallace got his first career win. And they showed a lot of signs of improvement through the year, and now they'll be looking into 2022 and that. So now let's go through the 2022 driver lineup and everything going on with 23-11 Racing. First thing, there's a lot of movements that are going to be happening. Of course, also, they're going to have Dave Rodgers working in their team as a development coach for the team next year. Dave Rodgers, of course, coming from Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series. He'll be jumping up to the Cup Series next year to work as a development coach, which I think that is a huge pickup. The guy's been a crew chief for Joe Gibbs Racing in the past, has contended for championships in the Cup Series. He's won championships, multiple drivers, has contended with Kyle Busch. He's contended with Carl Eggers for a championship, so he knows how to get it done, knows what he's doing, and I think he has a really good shot of contending next year. So now let's jump into the lineup for this year. The first driver we're talking about is a driver that is once again returning to the team, Bubba Wallace, in the number 23 car next year. Unclear if all the sponsors that sponsor Bubba Wallace are going to sponsor him next year, but I would assume that all the major sponsors, Dr. Pepper, DoorDash, Root Insurance, McDonald's, and Columbia will return. I would assume that all 5 of those sponsors are going to return next year, but I would expect that. Also, Booty Barker will be working with him next year. The goal for Bubba, in my opinion, going into 2022 is I need to see major improvement from Bubba Wallace. I need to see him being much more of a contender because I think that if they can finish racing more, because that's one thing, especially at the beginning of the year, that really cost them an opportunity to contend overall for a good shot to make the playoffs. Because if you actually look at some of the races where they struggled at, they were contending for the playoffs. They were running top 15s and top 20s, and then they started picking up top 15s and 20s. But unfortunately, it was almost too late for them by this specific point. So for Bubba Wallace going into 2022, I have to 100% start seeing a lot more improvement. And I do think going into next year that he actually will improve next year because he once again is going to be working with Booty Barker as a crew chief next year. I think Booty Barker was an excellent choice to put in as a crew chief Bubba Wallace in the later portions of this last year. And I do think that he is going to be a person that is going to be able to help Bubba Wallace out there. Also, Freddie Kraft, who does that Doorbell Clear Pockets, is also going to be spotting for Bubba Wallace once again in 2022. And that chemistry between spotter, driver, driver and crew chief is something that we've really Bubba kind of struggled with Mike Wheeler. But with Bubba working out with Booty Barker going into next year, I believe that crew chief and group pair is going to work well. Booty Barker brings a lot of entertainment, a lot of excitement as a crew chief, and he really knows what he's doing, and I think that he'll do great. Now, first of all, what are my expectations for Bubba Wallace going into next year? I think Bubba Wallace 100% needs to win a race next year and contend for the playoffs next year. And actually, I think he really almost needs to make the playoffs this year in the second year. And I think he'll have to win to make because the field in 2022 is super competitive. And we really don't know how good he's going to be, considering it is going to be a new car going into the 2022 season. But if I'm Bubba Wallace, I got to go out here and prove myself. And at points, he has proven himself as a race car driver. And he'll once again be working with Booty Barker next year. I think that this pairing is going to work out very, very well. And I'm really excited for Bubba Wallace next season. And I think he'll do really well next year. The second driver that's going to be driving for 2311 Racing is going to be Kurt Busch in the 45 car. Kurt Busch is expected to be sponsored by Monster Energy. It's unclear if it's every single race or the majority of the year. I would assume that there will probably be a few races where Kurt Busch is most likely not going to be sponsored by Monster Energy. Maybe they'll get DraftKings sponsored. Maybe some of Kurt's sponsors from Chip Ganassi Racing come over, like Cessna or other sponsors that did sponsor him, may come over and sponsor him. Perhaps we know the Gear Wrench is going over to work with Kevin Harvick next year, but I would assume that there's potential that some of the sponsors from Chip Ganassi Racing or other personal sponsors that Kurt Busch has had are going to be going over there. On top of that, there have been a lot of talk for a long time about Kurt Busch with the team that they were not really going to be able to secure a charter for next year until about a week ago, because Starcom Racing, it was confirmed about a week ago that they had sold their charter to 2311 Racing. This is in a partnership with Spire Motorsports. They were able to get it off acquisition. The Starcom charter was originally supposed to go to Spire for a second charter for that team, but that charter was sold to 2311 Racing, and they will have that charter for years to come. On top of that, Kurt Busch is going to be working with Billy Scott in 2022. Now, Billy Scott only has one win in his NASCAR Cup Series career as a crew chief, but guess who he won that race with? You probably guessed it, Kurt Busch. He won that race at Bristol in 2018 during Sir Haas Racing's domination efforts, and they were really, really dominant in 2018, and they also made the round of 8, and they worked together very, very well. And Kurt Busch wanted to work with someone that he's very familiar with, and they really didn't get to finish the business with Billy Scott, so he's going to be working with Billy Scott once again in 2022. Now, let's talk about this pickup of Kurt Busch. Kurt Busch, in my opinion, is absolutely a huge pickup for 2311 Racing going into next year. Kurt Busch is a championship caliber driver. Kurt Busch has won races or contended for wins with every team he's ran with. He won a championship with Roush Fleming Racing, contended for many, many wins and championships with Team Penske in his 5 years with that organization. Contended for wins even in the Phoenix Racing Group at Sonoma, a race team that really, really wasn't that good. And he actually did really, really well considering the equipment. Helped Furniture Row become a much better organization in 2013 and was one of the drivers, not just Mark Truex Jr., but was one of the drivers that really helped Furniture Row Racing become a very, very solid team. And they showed a lot of promise in 2013 and got a lot of better. And also late 2012, because Kurt Busch, when he got into Furniture Row in late 2012, he really improved that team. They were starting to improve after that win in 2011 for Regan Smith, but he did really, really well. Goes to SHR and wins at least one race every single year and contends for championships, and then goes to Chip Ganassi Racing and wins one race each year. All of them on mile and a half, by the way. In 2019, he won in Kentucky in a crazy finish. 2021 at Las Vegas, and then in 2021 won Atlanta in really, really dominating fashion. Had the most dominant car he had since probably winning at Richmond in 2016, or probably winning at Pocono, or 2015, or winning at Pocono in the 2016 season, or Bristol 2018. Because Bristol 2018, he did have a really, really fast car. On top of that, Kurt Busch bringing funding to the team. And another big thing is that Kurt Busch, I think, is going to be a great mentor and give a lot of guidance to Bubba Wallace. I think that is one thing that Bubba Wallace has really been struggling with as a NASCAR Cup Series driver. And I think having that mentorship and guidance from a guy like Kurt Busch coming to this team, that's a major, major asset. And I think Kurt Busch is really going to elevate this team overall as a whole. Having a driver like Kurt Busch in a team is big. On top of that, I really think he's also going to elevate not just 2311 Racing, but all the Toyota teams as well. Whether it's Gaunt Brothers Racing or Joe Gibbs Racing, I think having a guy like Kurt Busch in your team, he's going to be able to go in there and elevate the organization next year. Now, my big question in regards to Kurt Busch is, what do I expect for Kurt Busch going into the 2022 season? I believe that Kurt Busch will win next year. I know that it's very, very tough to say that considering it's a team that really is kind of inexperienced, but I think Kurt Busch will do very well with the team. So I'm expecting 2311 to improve, and they were showing signs of improvement as the year went on. And I think Kurt Busch will do very, very well. Plus, he and Billy Scott have a really awesome working relationship together. So I think Kurt Busch will win next year, and I also think he'll be consistently a top 10 to top 15 driver in points. I know that's really high expectations for Kurt Busch going into a team, but we've seen drivers do exceptionally well in teams, and I think that he could be a driver that is an underdog in 2022. So I think Kurt Busch is going to do very, very well. 2311 Racing has a lot of promise going into next year. There's no doubt about it. And I think that with the pick up a Kurt Busch next year, and just in general, there's so much potential for this team. Next year in 2022, they've got to show more signs of improvement. And they got to be a championship, not championship caliber, but they got to be a playoff caliber team long time down the road. So I'm really, really excited for 2311 Racing going into next year. I think the future of this team long term is really brilliant. I do think long term that they are going to expand to 3 or 4 car operation if more charters come in or more manufacturers come in like Dodge. This could be where we could see more of this team showing a lot more. So I am extremely excited about 2311 Racing going into next year, and that is your team preview for 2311 Racing going into the 2022 season. So anyway, that is it for today's team preview on my channel. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications so you be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Link description below for that, and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your expectations for 2311 Racing as a whole? Do you think that Kurt Busch and Bubba Wallace are not only going to win races in 2022, or do you think that they're both going to also make the class in 2022 or not? Let me know that in the comments below. I have a lot more special videos that are going to be dropping really, really soon on this channel. I have a Q&A that is going to be dropping tomorrow, so I hope you guys are enjoying that. I'm filming that later tonight, and I'm hoping to see you guys at that Q&A to enjoy it, which will be coming out here on Thanksgiving. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more great and awesome NASCAR content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.